For the first question, we are solving for the concentration of alcohol in the final mixture. So we're starting with 12 ounces of something that is 5% alcohol, and we are mixing that with 4 ounces of something that is 45% alcohol. So the concentration in the final mixture, the thing we're solving for, is, well, what's the percent of it? And the other thing to keep in mind, if you mix these two things together, you're going to have 12 ounces here, 4 ounces here, for a total of 16 over here. So I'll just put that as you're adding those together. The equation must be the percent times the number of ounces plus the percent times the number of ounces. So that means we always have a percent times an amount. Here, since we're mixing them together, you have a plus sign. And on the other side, we have some percent, which we're solving for, times the amount, which is 12 plus 4. Now all we have to do is actually solve this equation. Okay, so we get 0.6 plus 1.8 is equal to, that's 16 times x. So then we have 1.8 plus 0.6, that is 2.4. And if we divide both sides by 16, we have our answer, which is 0.15. And since I want to write this as a percent, this means 15% alcohol in the final mixture. For the second problem, we're solving for something different. Instead of a percent, we're solving for the number of ounces of 8% alcohol we're adding into the solution. So to start with, we have 50 ounces of something that is 25% alcohol, and we want to increase this to something that is 75% alcohol. And we happen to have this 80% alcohol on hand. So the question is, how many ounces of this do you pour in to bring it all up to 75%? And I'll just include that, well, the total amount of liquid at the end is going to be 50 ounces plus X ounces from your other solution. The equation we get is going to be 25% or 0.25 times 50 plus 0.8 times X, and that's going to be equal to 0.75 times 50 plus X. I can now focus on solving this equation. All right, so we get 12.5 plus 0.8x is equal to, and I distribute the 0.75, we get 37.5 plus 0.75x. I will subtract the 12.5 from both sides, and at the same time also subtract the 0.75x from both sides. And what I get is 0.05x is equal to 25. Dividing both sides by 0.05. It's going to move the decimal twice. 5 goes into 2,500 500 times. Okay, I was expecting the answer to be big. We were going from 25% up to 75%. That's a big increase. Plus, the stuff we were pouring in was very close to this number as well. So that is 500 ounces of 80% alcohol needs to be added. For this next problem, we're solving for the number of liters of pure water that needs to be added. So we're starting with something that is 15% acid, and we have 2 liters of it. But that's just too strong. We want to reduce that down to 5% acid. Well, how many liters of pure water do I pour in to do that? The thing to point out is that this is 0% acid if it is pure water. Also, the number of liters that you have at the very end is going to be 2 plus x, making our equation 0.15 times 2 plus 0.00 times x. Like, really, we don't have to incorporate that. I'll just place it there for the time being. And I want it to be equal to 0.05 times 2 plus x. Okay, so eventually we'll distribute this into the parentheses, but all right, we have 0.3 plus 0, like I said, I'm not even going to write that. We'll just leave that off. This is equal to 0.1 plus 0.05x. I will subtract 0.1 from both sides. 0.2 is equal to 0.05x, dividing both sides by 0.05. Okay, that's how many times does 5 go into 20? That is a total of 4. So the number of liters of pure water that you would have to add is 4 liters. So for this next problem, we're going to add some number of milliliters of pure alcohol into a given solution. So we're starting with 2 liters of something that is 95% alcohol. And to this, we're going to pour in pure alcohol. So we raise the concentration to 95.01%, so not very far at all. And X is how many liters we're going to pour in to do that, and pure alcohol is 100% alcohol, meaning that, again, we have 2 plus X liters at the very end. So this equation is going to be 0.95 times 2 plus 1.00 times X is equal to 0.9501 times 2 plus X, which means we'll have to distribute this into the parentheses. Simplifying, we have that 0.95 times 2 is 1.9. I'll just write this as X, and after I distribute in the 0.9501, I get 1.9002 plus 0.9501x. I will subtract this from both sides, and why not subtract this from both sides at the same time? When I do, I'm left with 0.0499x is equal to 0.0002. Okay, so I will divide both sides by 0.0499, and the answer I get is X is equal to 0. I'm going to write out a few decimals because it's pretty small, but it's 0.04008. Perhaps I'll start there. Okay, so one thing to point out is that the way we solve this problem, X is actually in liters because I didn't convert anything. So all the units have to match up, and this is liters. The number of milliliters that this is, we can convert by multiplying this by 1,000. So currently this is in liters. I want to convert it to milliliters. So that just means I'm moving the decimal 1, 2, 3 times. So like I said, this is currently liters, or 4.008 milliliters. The remaining problems refer to the following graphs. So that's questions 5 through 20. So starting with problem 5, I want to figure out where is f of x equal to negative 4. And this is just simply an understanding of function notation. That is, this is a y value. What x values make this true? So if you look up at the graph, where are the y values equal to negative 4? And that's right here. Because if you look over to the axis, that's negative 4. So it's just this one spot. And the solution is the corresponding x, which is negative 5. Perfect. So the solution to this equation is x is equal to negative 5. And the reason is, if you take that number and put it in place of x, it gives you negative 4 back, i.e., negative 5 for x gives you negative 4 back for y. So same thing for 6. 6 isn't much different. That's where is f of x equal to 0? The only y value on the graph that is equal to 0 is right here. The y value is not up or down, it's right on the axis. The corresponding x value is 3, negative 3 that is. So the answer is x is equal to negative 3. The reason being f of negative 3 is 0. And the only thing that's a little weird in 7, where is f of x equal to 2, is that there's two solutions. Here's y is equal to 2, and there's two places that have this value, -2 and 6. So there's actually two solutions, -2 and 6. The reason is, if you put -2 into the function, you get 2 back for y. If you put 6 into the function, you also get 2 back for y. So again, you could just plug those in like we did here if you'd like, but these three problems will help us solve 8 through 20, the remaining ones. So let's look at 8. F of x plus 1 equals -4. So at this point, I really just want to use a fact to solve this problem. And that fact is, anything that happens with inside the parentheses of a function will be the opposite result that you expect. F of x plus 1 equals -4. I'm going to refer to this piece up here. Where is my function equal to -4? And I see the answer is -5. It's x equals -5. You might think, I know what, I'll add 1 to that number, but actually the opposite is true. I'm going to take this value and subtract 1 from it. That is the answer to this problem. X equals -6. I think it's worth checking why. If you take -6 and you put it into this function right here and simplify it, it should make this a true statement. Let's try it out. -6 goes in place of x, and we're asking, is this true? Well, you have to simplify -6 plus 1 first, which is -5. And oh yeah, right, f of -5 is equal to -4. So if you see a plus 1, you actually subtract 1 from this number here. For number 9, if we look at that one next, where is f of x minus 1 equal to -4? So I know that -5 in the function gives me -4, and I see this -1. I'm actually going to add 1 to this answer. The answer to this problem is x is equal to -4. And the reason is, when you take that number, -4, and you put it into this equation and simplify it, you get f of -5, which gives us -4. For 10, where is f of x plus 5 equal to 0? So I'm going to use the fact that f of -3 is 0. And here I see this plus 5, so I'm actually going to subtract 5 from this number, and that gives me my solution. The solution is x is equal to -8. And the reason is, if you put -8 right here and add 5 to it, it would give you this -3. Okay, likewise, where is f of x minus 8 equal to 0? Again, the fact that it's 0 means I'm referring to this number here. Since there is a -8 here, I'm going to add 8 to this answer, making the answer positive 5. And the reason this works is, if you put 5 here and subtract 8, it gives you -3. 12 is kind of tricky because there's two possibilities. In fact, we'll have two separate answers here. I see this plus 7, and all it means, I'm going to subtract 7 from both of those numbers. The solutions to this equation are going to be, if I take 7 from -2, I get -9. And also, if I were to subtract 7 from 6, I get -1. And if you think about it, if you put -9 right here, this simplifies to -2, which is exactly what I want. If I put -1 here, -1 plus 7 is 6, which is the number I want here. All I did was subtract 7 from this number and that one. For question 13, I see we have division by 2, and what that will mean for us is we're actually going to multiply this number by 2 instead of divide. The answer to this equation is going to be x is equal to -10. The reason is, if you put -10 right here and divide it by 2, it gives you -5. Question 14 says f of 2 is equal to 2. So again, I'm referring to these 2 points here because of the 2 here. Now this is 2 times x. So here, it was dividing by 2, so I multiplied by 2. Multiplication by 2 turns into division by 2. I'm basically just going to take these two numbers and divide them both by 2. Here are my answers. x is equal to -1 and x is equal to 3. The reason they work is if you put -1 right here and multiply it by 2, it gives you -2. If you take 3 and put that right here, 2 times 3 is 6, which gives me this value here. Okay, so for this problem, I see a 0 here, meaning I'm referring to that -3. Here, division by 3 is going to change into multiplication by 3 to this number. That means my solution is x is equal to -9. And the reason is, if you place -9 right here and divide by 3, it would give you -3. And likewise for this next one, I see I'm multiplying by 3, meaning I need to divide this number by 3. So therefore the answer is going to be -1. Putting a -1 in place of this x makes this equal -3, which matches this number here. Okay, so for this next one, I'm multiplying by 5, meaning I need to divide this number by 5. The answer therefore is going to be equal to -1. If I place -1 right here, I get -5. And if we check out 18, I can still use the same idea where, can I think of a number that would that if I put right here would make this equal -5 over here? The way you'd figure that out is by taking this and dividing by -5. So the answer is going to be x is equal to +1. If you put a +1 right here and multiply it out, it would take you back to -5. Said another way, all I did was take this number and divide it by that number. So question 19 is kind of tricky just because there's a couple of steps to it. I think I'm going to treat this one just slightly differently, where what I'd like to do is somehow make this thing equal -3. And I think the easiest way to do that is to just set up an equation. When does the thing inside the parentheses equal -3? What x makes this true? It's really easy to solve for. You can subtract 1 from both sides and then divide both sides by 2. And we get our answer of -2. So that's the answer to this equation, -2. If you put -2 right here, you first get -4. Adding 1 gives you -3, which is the number that we want. Same idea for question 20 as in 19. Here I have a kind of complicated expression, so instead of trying to simply guess the answer, I'm just going to take this expression, set it equal to -2, solve it, also set it equal to 6, and just get my answers that way. So that is, when is -x minus 4 equal to -2? When is -x minus 4 equal to 6? Here I can add 4 to both sides. I get that -x is equal to 2, and after dividing both sides by -1, I get that x is equal to -2. That is one of my solutions. X is -2. The reason it works is, if you put -2 right here, negative times negative is +2, and +2 minus 4 takes you back to -2. For this second equation, it'll be similar to solve. I'll add 4, which gives me -x is equal to 10. Dividing both sides by -1 gives me x is equal to -10. This is my other solution. X is -10. That is, if you put a -10 here, the negative makes it a +10, and +10 minus 4 is 6.